All right, everybody. I want to first and foremost thank everybody for hopping on the call today. I'm super excited to be here. For those that have been following along with us throughout the journey, this is our third and final segment of the employee journey. So, really, our focus conversation here today is talking about retirement readiness and how do you prepare for retirement with confidence. So, really, the goal of our conversation here today is to focus on employees that are 5 to 15 years out of retirement and want a roadmap on how to better prepare yourself as you reach that next milestone, really that most important milestone of retirement. This is why we do what we do, and I'm super excited to be talking about this topic here today and to have you all on the call. Want to go through a couple of housekeeping items before jumping in. So I want everybody to know and be aware that we are recording our conversation today. So everybody that is on the call, as well as anybody who signed up that may have missed our conversation today, will be getting a recorded version of this presentation. This also is a presentation for you. The chat and Q&A boxes are open. So please feel free as we go through the conversation to put your information, your questions directly into the Q&A or the chat, whichever is easier for you. And we'll be sure to answer those as we go along. We've got a great presentation loaded up for you here today, and I'm excited to jump in. So what are we going to talk about? Well, I think really the best place to start is the foundation for retirement. How do you make sure that you've got that strong foundation of moving into that next phase of life? Where do you begin on doing that? Well, portfolio construction and understanding the sequence of return risk that you have as a retired investor is important to understand. Then we're also going to tackle how to make tax efficient withdrawals throughout your lifetime. We'll discuss a little bit around Social Security and cash flow planning. And the last topic that we're going to spend some time on, which I think is so important but often overlooked, is retirement life stage and short-term retirement plans. So we'll dive into a little bit around what is it that you actually want to be doing in retirement and how you answer that question rather is really such an important bedrock for you as you move into that next stage of life. For those that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Will Ham. I'm the CEO and founder of 27T Financial. I'm really passionate about helping solving the retirement savings gap. 27T comes from the $27 trillion retirement savings gap that's plaguing American savers today. And for you joining the call, we're taking a step in making sure that we improve that savings gap and set you up for success. I've spent over 10 years in the financial services industry working with individuals as well as businesses to help people better prepare for retirement. And everybody that's on this call today, you all really should know me as your retirement 401k guy. You've probably seen an email come through as it pertains to your company-sponsored retirement plan. And as an employee of an organization that utilizes me and my team, you will continue to have educational resources and one-on-one access to me as your financial advisor. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means here at the end as well, if any of this resonates and we want to set up some additional time to talk. So let's jump into the poll as we get started here today. I'm going to launch a poll. You should see the questions come up here. I would love to have everybody on this call answer to the best of their ability. Really, before we jump in, so we make sure we spend an ample amount of time on what's giving you the most heartache or giving you the most concern, what worries you the most about retirement? Is it running out of savings, taxes and withdrawals, health or long-term care costs, or lifestyle and staying engaged. All of these are very important topics as we move into retirement. So let's give folks a minute or two more to answer this poll question, and we'll see what the feedback is. All right. Well, it looks like we don't have everybody, but we got a good sample size here. Most people are concerned with the component of running out of savings. I think that's a very important aspect. Probably the number one thing that people ask me as they're looking at transitioning. Am I saving enough? Have I saved enough? And then health or long-term care costs. This increasingly becomes a topic of conversation, especially for those that maybe are already transitioning to retirement. How do I pay for my health care and long-term care uh, needs? And so we'll talk a little bit about that. There will be some more education in the future directly pertaining to healthcare and long-term care costs. But today, most of our time will be spent on this. How do you set yourself up from a withdrawal strategy standpoint and investment standpoint to help secure the secure your retirement future and make sure you don't run out of money? So let's ask that question. What is retirement readiness? Well, for most on this call today, you're actively employed, you're working, you're climbing the proverbial mountain. And, quite frankly, when comparing two different types of scenarios, the climb can be challenging in its own right, but there are some very basic principles that if you follow, you're going to be very successful. And it's taking the right step to save into your company sponsored retirement plan. It's selecting an investment allocation that's appropriate for your goals and risk preferences, as well as just making sure that every pay period you're making those contributions. And that's really going to be the bedrock and foundation for your success as a retirement saver. I'm a true believer that retirement plans, any sort of company or organization sponsored retirement plan, is the single best vehicle for employees to build wealth for themselves and save for retirement. Now, what's the end all goal though? You're not going to be climbing the mountain forever. Eventually, you will be getting to the top. This is the fun part. You see the beautiful view, you've made it, everybody is celebrating the success that you've had, and you have the opportunity to take a step back and create that, what we call second act. And so what we're showing here today is eventually you're going to have to scale that mountain back down. And this is where things get incredibly challenging. There are a lot of decisions that need to be made as a retiree. And this is really what we want to talk to you about today is how do you create that strategy as you move into retirement to make sure that you are best set up for success? Because you've made it to the top, you've enjoyed the view, but hey, you're starting to get hungry and it's time to move down the mountain. But you don't want to take that misstep because, as you can see here, one major misstep can have significant long-term impact. So let's begin. Let's jump into that conversation here. Retirement is really a transition for anybody that's been working for an extended period of time. It's the end of a working life, but it's the beginning of having more control over what you're doing. And really, our focus is on your overall well-being, your goals, what you want to be doing, and not necessarily just the financial component. If somebody's lifestyle is and planning needs are very different. If you are looking at traveling to Europe 6 months out of the year and flying first class versus somebody that would like to stay home, stay close to grandchildren, and has a preference to live out their retirement years doing something like that. So making sure that as we think about the foundational principles of planning for retirement, it's a good idea to begin asking yourself those questions. And I think one of the best things that I can deliver to you is retirement is changing, and we've got great news. We're living longer. The flip side to that is it adds complexity to the planning process. The bad news is we're also living. And I think this quote is funny because most people that I talk to that are nearing that retirement age have 65 as that kind of goal time period of when they'd like to retire. And the great comedian George Burns said, retirement is 65 is ridiculous. When I was 65, I still had pimples. And I don't necessarily think that we're trying to say that retiring at 65 is ridiculous, but you have to think about the long term when you're retiring, especially at 65. Why is that? Well, from a life expectancy standpoint, things continue to trend up in a positive direction. Again, great thing, but adds complexity to your retirement planning. So, what do we do about that? Well, we want to make sure that things are structured appropriately from an investment perspective to plan for that next time period, a 30+ year time horizon when it comes to your retirement. And so from a investment perspective, are we set up appropriately for that? A lot of times what we see is investors go into maybe a target date fund that they were put into when they originally saved, and it's gotten more and more conservative over time, but their goals are different than what that fund was really set up to do. So how do you structure your investment allocation to make sure, hey, as we transition to this next phase, are we established for a 30-year retirement? On top of that, from a savings perspective, sometimes someone is very fortunate to get started early. They put money away, it's been able to compound. And when they're reaching retirement, it's more of, hey, I can retire when I want, than do I have enough? Most people are in a different scenario. Hey, early life is hard. Bringing up kids is hard. You weren't making a lot of money when you're young, but now as you're getting closer to retirement, you do have more flexible income. Maybe the kids are out of the house, your spending needs have changed dramatically. Just because you may be 5 to 15 years out of retirement doesn't mean that changes that you make today don't have a significant impact on your long-term outcomes. So, can you be saving more? Are there adjustments that you can make internally to your retirement plan or externally to your full financial picture that are going to set you up for a greater likelihood of success? And then realizing that those changes today, whether you're 50 or 60 years old, still play a significant role as you move into retirement and have that 25, 30+ year time horizon. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, but we want to make sure as we make that transition that we don't change our investor behavior. So Dalbar does this study regularly. I think this is such an important component to touch on, is if you're looking at returns of your stock market portfolio, the S&P 500, what this is showing you is averaged annualized returns over a 20-year period are 9%. We're not talking about 9% total. We're talking about every single year, 9% growth of that money. Investors, people that are actually investing in the market, have a significant gap. About 5% is their actual realized return. Part of that is asset allocation. Part of that is poor decision making. And what I often see with clients as they are in that retirement phase or nearing that retirement phase is, hey, I've got this huge account balance. I've been saving for so long, and this is finally what I'm going to use to retire. I cannot lose it. And that's okay to feel that way, but know that making decisions on a feelings basis can have long-term negative impact on your account balance. Because realistically, bad market returns are temporary, but bad behavior does significant long-term damage. You can't make up that gap. And when you interrupt the compounding nature of your investments, it has a significantly negative impact over the long term. And we can also dive deep into how difficult it is if you pull your money out of the market to get back into the market. And that's why if you're in this cohort, you're 5 to 15 years out of retirement, it's so important to make sure from an asset allocation standpoint, you're appropriately allocated to the right investment mix for you. I personally am a firm believer that sometimes it makes sense for some investors to give up some potential long-term returns in order to have what I call that sleep at night factor. They're able to sleep at night. They're able to maintain their strategy through good times and bad, because that gives you a higher likelihood of success. When we're going through financial planning conversations, we're factoring in bear markets. We're factoring in this volatility that comes into the market. And so we will talk about withdrawal strategies and why this is important, but that first foundational aspect of your retirement savings journey, or planning for retirement rather, should be ensuring that your investment allocation is appropriate to your long-term retirement goals. So we're starting that descent down the mountain. Where do we go from here? Well, if you're like a lot of near retirees, what I see is people have accounts at a lot of places. A 401k here, maybe an old 401k somewhere else. You've got your savings accounts. Maybe you inherited some old bonds. You've got an old broker that you worked with that sold you some mutual funds, and you were told to start a Roth IRA 5 years ago, and you've put some money in there. What does that mean for you? How do you access it? What are the strategic ways that you can utilize these different accounts to benefit you in retirement? And if you're looking at the age-old strategy, maybe your average financial advisor is going to come in and say, you need to be in a 60% stock, 40% bond, and cash equivalent portfolio, and that's it. We'll allocate you 60-40, and you'll pull 4% of your salary from, 4% of your account balance rather from your portfolio. We'll wash your hands. We did a great job, and you're on your way. Really, it's more complex than that. If you are paying attention to any financial news recently, the 4% withdrawal strategy is a hot topic of conversation for those that are at, in, or nearing retirement. It's all over the financial advising, financial planning news circuit today. Is this still a viable option? Is this something that works well? In our opinion, we really feel like there's a better approach to this than simply saying, let's do some simple back of the napkin math and we'll keep things pretty stagnant moving forward. The bucket strategy is an approach that we like to take. And really what we think about by utilizing the bucket strategy high level before we dive into this more is thinking about having short-term bucket, maybe some more cash and easily accessible vehicles in the short-term bucket, medium-term bucket, and a long-term bucket. And then making sure that your investments in each bucket match those goals over time. Why is that? So, any chart that you show as a financial advisor, this looks great. It's simple, it's easy to understand, and it looks like, hey, if I just do something simple like this over time, things are going to work out just fine. We're not going to have any problems, and we're going to be in a good situation. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation. Life events happen, things change, medical needs arise. The chart never looks perfect like this. So how do you prepare for that? And we really feel like that bucket phase or bucket strategy is important. So let's pause here and dive a little bit deeper into why that is. One of the most important components is sequence of return risk. Hopefully this isn't causing everybody on the call today to have their eyes glazed over. We really want to simplify what this is and make sure that you have a good understanding of why you need to understand the importance of a strategic withdrawal strategy. So as we mentioned before, there's a few key foundational pieces to being successful in the journey up the mountain. And what you'll see here on this illustration, we're looking at $1 million investment. And really over time, it doesn't matter where those returns come. Portfolio A is very front-end loaded. Portfolio B has average returns, and portfolio C is back-end loaded. What you can see here is everybody ends up at the same spot. There's no money coming out of the portfolio, so really those average returns matter more so than when those returns occurred. Now, let's see what happens if you implement a withdrawal strategy to that same $1 million portfolio. How does that impact the end outcome? And this is where it's really important to see here. So portfolio A, again, is that front-end loaded portfolio. You're getting good returns in those first 2 years. Portfolio B is an average return of 7% annualized, and portfolio C is having a difficult return environment in the early years with back-end loaded returns. What we're showing you here is, again, that $1 million account balance, but we're also showing a $60,000 annual withdrawal strategy, also implementing 3% year-over-year changes for inflation. And what you can see here is a dramatically different outcome based on market returns for these portfolios. So if you are unfortunate enough to start in a down market as you retire, you will still be able to live out a long life, right, with your money into your late 80s. But I'll promise you, I've had clients that say, hey, I want my last check that I write as I die to bounce. The last thing you want to be doing as you're aging into your life is to be counting pennies, is really an important component to understand. And so we don't want you to end with zero. We want you to end with a comfortable lifestyle. So that average return, hey, you make it all the way to 90 and you've got about 400,000 in your account by taking all that money out, and you're coming out ahead. But that's looking at just simply annualized average returns of 7%. Portfolio A has the high front-end loaded returns that you can see here with the negative returns there later. And what you can see is over that time period, you're ending with more money than you started with. And so how do you set yourself up for success? Because what we don't want you to do is say, I'm retiring at 65 and I cannot wait. And then the stock market takes a turn and you have to change your plans. If you plan appropriately, you can retire when you want to. If you don't plan appropriately, things that are out of your control can impact the decisions that you make. So the sequence of return events plays nicely into that bucket strategy, where we have short-term assets that are already earmarked for those early returns, so we can offset that sequence of return risk that you're taking on. That's something not in your control. And then you still have those other two buckets, the mid and long-term buckets, that are able to generate return over time, so you can make it you can take that longer term time horizon into perspective. So there's a little bit of a balancing act going on, but having an understanding of this topic puts you so much further ahead than anybody else that's gearing up and planning for retirement. Then as we actually enter retirement, enter the retirement phase, is how do you structure your withdrawal strategy to be tax efficient? And as you look at the details of the bucket strategy, you can put different accounts into different buckets. Hey, maybe our Roth account is in that longer term bucket, where our traditional IRA may be in a shorter or medium term bucket. And we can help you visualize the ladder of when and where to pull from these accounts over time. Another thing to consider is a lot of times what I see is as people enter retirement, they may be in a lower tax bracket and they're not necessarily drawing from their accounts and realizing a high taxable income for the year. So you've got this opportunity to do what's called Roth conversions. Maybe you only had the ability to contribute pre-tax to your 401k, and this is an opportunity to diversify your tax buckets without paying a significant tax penalty on making those conversions. So early in retirement, looking at making those changes and managing your future tax liability. And then you also want to take in to account the IRMAA cliffs, and at age 65 plus, how your Medicare premiums play into these withdrawal strategies. Because sometimes if you can pull from some other accounts, it can prevent some long-term higher costs that are associated with Medicare payments. And so really taking that full picture, if you think back to that funnel that we started with on this withdrawal strategy slide, part of the presentation, where you've got your IRA, your 401k, your stocks, your bonds, your Roth IRA, and how do you make that more efficient for yourself? And these are really the bedrock components of how to do so. And everybody's scenario is different. So when working through this type of transition, we want to look at your full financial picture and make sure that we're taking all of these items into consideration when developing a withdrawal strategy. All right. This may be the hottest topic that we talk about here today. I don't know that I get through a conversation about Social Security without somebody saying, will it be here? Can I lean on Social Security to be there for me through my retirement years? I tend to take a simplified view of politics because this is a political issue. It's not a right or a left issue. It's simply a government issue in terms of what would impact you individually. And the way that I view it is politicians are really consistently trying to get reelected. And what they're doing is putting forth policies that are going to help achieve that goal for themselves. So if you look at it through that lens, any near and post-retiree is the most significant voter base in terms of consistency and number of people that actually vote in elections. And I truly believe that politicians are not going to impact that base. If you're 5 to 15 years out, you're probably not going to see a significant change on this benefit for yourself. Somebody like me that has a few more working years ahead of themselves, it's a different conversation and a different planning perspective to take to that conversation. But as far as you all are concerned in that 5 to 15 year time horizon, I think that any strategy that you put into place today is something that is more than likely going to be able to be maintained through retirement. So what does that look like? How do you do it? Do I claim early? Do I claim on time? Do I claim late? It comes down to your personal situation, but there are some strategies that we can put into place. I mean, there are over 230 different claiming combinations that you can utilize. If you're married, if you're not, there are all different factors that come into play here when making those decisions for Social Security claiming purposes. A simplified chart of what you can see here is the difference between early claiming, mid claiming, and waiting to claim over time. The simplest component is you see a significant benefit in your monthly contribution or monthly paycheck from Social Security if you wait. That's just a fact. The longer you wait, the more money you're going to get on a monthly basis. Now, there are different factors to take into consideration when doing so. A big component is health and longevity risk, as well as your portfolio construction, how much you've saved, and how maybe withdrawing more early could impact you over time. So again, it's a very personalized perspective that you'll need to take, but there are tools and resources we have available to help walk you through this. So to simplify the number, you're looking at about 177% increase in the difference between an early strategy versus a late strategy benefit. And there are a lot of benefits of waiting, but there are a ton of components that go into waiting. So don't think that we're here saying, hey, taking early is not the right move. You should only claim late. You really want to make sure from any Social Security claiming perspective that you're making a decision based on your full financial picture. It's not a decision to be made in a vacuum. And really what we do for our clients that are going through this is we're looking at a break-even analysis, comparing age 62, age 66, and age 70, looking at different illustrations over time, married, not married, 2 working spouses, 1 working spouse, somebody claims early, somebody claims late, both claim in the middle, and making sure that from your perspective, you're getting the most out of the Social Security benefit. Then what we also do is we layer on what we call a waterfall structure, an income waterfall structure. We'll combine the Social Security payments as you progress into retirement, required minimum distributions, and determine what has to be earned income for you and how to be flexible with that withdrawal strategy to minimize the tax liability on you, as well as minimize those Medicare premiums and IRMAA surcharges based on your income needs. So taking that full financial picture and creating that income strategy for yourself. Social Security Administration, I do like to point out that the team at the Social Security Administration, when staffed, when not on, when the government is actually in service and helping individuals, is a great resource to help get signed up. They understand how to utilize the system and make sure that you're in a good position to claim your Social Security benefit when you want to. But we want to make sure that you also know that the Social Security Benefits Office cannot give you advice. They can't say, hey, Bob, you should claim Social Security at 70 based on what you told me. No, they'll tell you how to sign up. They'll tell you how to claim at 70 or 62 or something in between, but they cannot give you specific advice. So I would recommend going through that exercise before claiming your benefit to make sure what you're doing is what's best for you. And so as we transition out of the nuts and bolts, that financial picture, I think this is something that is not spent enough time on when it comes to retirement planning, but to me is the bedrock and the most important financial consideration of retirement. What does retirement look like to you? This is a very generic timeline of what we see, but I've worked with a number of clients transitioning into this retirement phase. And what I often see is once retirement starts, it's, hey, we've got a ton to do. And there's a lot of fun things that we want to jump into. So you've got new routines, new lifestyles, you've got new goals that you want to achieve in retirement that you now can go after and attack. After a while, retirement starts to feel normal. Maybe you're still traveling here and there, but it's not as big of a necessity as those early years. Maybe you start to begin looking at volunteer opportunities or working in the community. And then from there, as you move further and further into retirement, our conversations shift to legacy, personal impact. What are we doing with our portfolio? How can we be helping others or helping our family? And so I think this is a good framework to take as you think about these aspects of retirement are, hey, my grandparents have been blessed with great health, and they traveled well into their 70s and early 80s, but they're now in their mid to late 80s, and travel has slowed down from that for them considerably. And I have a great relationship with them. A lot of their conversations are more around legacy than where's our next trip going to be. And so I think that's also an important component to factor into when you're thinking about these things. Hey, if you want to travel, that's awesome. You may not be traveling for 40 plus years. It may be, hey, how do we structure our withdrawal strategy to focus on traveling as much as we can early, and then maybe dialing it back later into retirement. And so that's really an important component of what this phase, if you think about phased retirement or considering retirement, one, when you're looking at these decisions, I think the most important one, again, I'm going to say it again and again and again, it's what do you want to get out of retirement? Then once you answer that question, it's how do we start dipping our toe in? If you're still working, I think there are some great options to consider. You can do things like take sabbaticals, or if you've built up a lot of time off, you can take it all at once. Hey, I've got 4 weeks of PTO. Maybe I do that over the holidays or in the middle of the summer. And I get a feel for what it's like not to have to go to work for an extended period of time. What am I going to do? What does my schedule look like? How do I think about scheduling my free time? If you want to move, maybe there's an opportunity to spend an extended period of time at the place that you want to move. You don't have to move right away. So you can go and get a long-term rental, an Airbnb, and spend time in a different city, a different community, a different state for a month or 2 months for a period of time. So you get to feel, one, is it actually what you thought it would be, and would you like to live there? And two, what are the areas that we would actually like to live in? Is that where you want to buy a house, or is that where we want to rent an apartment? And determining those important components as well. Some folks don't want to completely unplug from a working environment. So what does that look like to you? Are you able to potentially consult with your company? Are you somebody that just wants to be social and be out there and say, hey, it actually sounds pretty awesome to be a Walmart greeter and just be out in the community saying hi to people, maybe earning a little bit of money, and having the opportunity to be engaged throughout the day, but have more control over your schedule. So these are questions that I'm bringing up to maybe spur some ideas for you of, okay, how do we start thinking about this? Because if you're looking at what to do to get started, this is where you should start, is what do we want to do and how do we want to make it look? You have more control over what your life looks like in retirement than any other time in your lifetime. So create what makes sense for you. Create what sounds fun and exciting for you, and then build in the financial component after that. So as we work through this process, just as we're rounding third and heading home, what are the things that we can control when it comes to retirement planning? We can control our spending. We can control our investment risk. We can control when we retire and what we pay in taxes. What we can't control: longevity, health, the market, the economy, inflation. And so as we've worked through all of these topics here today, really the goal of putting together a good financial plan is finding that good middle ground between what we can control and what we cannot. And that's where I think there's such an important aspect of just being clear on what you want to do, and we'll help you figure out how to do it. So Just for everybody here on the call, we did provide some data. If anybody is interested in learning more on the data and those viewpoints, Vanguard does an annual How America Saves survey. This is a great piece that I read every single year and dive into. Something that's interesting. You can scan this QR code here on the screen, and it will take you right to that report. So wrapping up here as it pertains to retirement readiness, what is our checklist? What do we want to be considering as we move into retirement? Well, start with reassessing your investment allocation. Are you invested appropriately? Map out what money you've got in taxable accounts, tax deferred accounts, tax-free accounts, and start to organize your financial picture. Model that Social Security strategy, look at the break-even points and what makes sense for you and your personal situation. Most importantly, get clear on what you want to do. What does that look like for you? How do you want to do it? And then utilize these key components to get there. If you're working with somebody today, consult with your CPA or financial planner and work through these late career transitions. If this is something where you're looking to get extra help or extra support, it's something that I can certainly help with. I do want to at least open this up. We want to make sure we've got time for questions. I mentioned beforehand that both the chat and Q&A box are open for questions. So I'm going to give folks a few minutes here. If you have questions, please pop them into the Q&A and chat box. If it's something that you don't feel like you'd like to address with the group, I'm always here as the financial advisor of your company-sponsored retirement plan to help you on a one-on-one basis. As I mentioned before, I have tools and resources to help you with Social Security claiming strategy, with understanding the tax structure of your current investment vehicles. So please reach out to me, whether that's via email. You've got my phone number here, and I've added a QR code to my calendar. If you'd like to put one-on-one time to visit, hop in the calendar and schedule some time there as well. So really what we're here to do is help make sure that you're well prepared. Your companies are invested in you having the best possible financial experience through the retirement plan. And we want to make sure that you've got access to the information that you need. So really, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here to help you do in conjunction with the platform that is utilized for your retirement plan, but also being able to help with your full financial picture. So right now, it looks like we don't have specific questions that have hopped in. Oh, there we go. We've got our first question here. What should I do with my portfolio if it's in a target date and I'm getting close to retirement? So I think that's a wonderful question to answer. And really, it comes down to understanding what your risk preferences are and setting up the portfolio to best match those risk and goal-oriented preferences. I have a questionnaire that I can walk you through. So if you want to send me an email after this or hop on my calendar, I can send you that questionnaire that we can walk through, which will help better identify a true personalized investment structure for your portfolio. That was a great question to kick us off. Again, if anybody else is on the call that would like to ask questions about the presentation that we had here today, please pop it into the Q&A or into the chat. We're monitoring both at the moment. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen then. It looks like we just had one very important but awesome question here. Oh, here we go. If my spouse makes more than me and I'm entitled, am I entitled to half of their Social Security? So that comes down to really your whole earning picture. So there's a little bit more nuance to then saying, hey, in general, here's what the claiming strategy would look like. But there's the potential that you could take half of your spouses and build out the strategy that way. So again, there are questions about building out a specific Social Security strategy, please reach out, please schedule some time with me, because I think that looking at the full financial picture is going to be important to answer that question with great detail. So I want to thank everybody here for jumping on the call today. We do like to be effective and efficient, keep things high level, giving you a few minutes back in your day. Just a few housekeeping items, again, to wrap us up. You will be receiving a recording of this presentation here today. I'm so thankful and so appreciative of everybody jumping on and spending the time with us. I want to, again, encourage you to schedule time with me, to schedule time to visit one-on-one, to talk about your specific situation. Again, we can talk high level of these questions that came in, but we can be more effective in our targeted advice if we're able to visit on an individual basis. So thank you for the time. Thank you for the interaction today. I hope you all got a lot out of this. I had so much fun creating this presentation and presenting it to you all. Hopefully that shined through here this afternoon. Again, from everybody here at 27T, we want to make sure you've got the tools and resources, whatever stage of life that you're in, we want to make sure that you're well taken care of. So do your organizations. So thank you. Please reach out. Please schedule time with me. And I look forward to visiting with each and every one of you. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.